The Tag on the Key. Book 1. The Plan. Chapter 13. Paula. A major person in my life was Paula, and her husband, Louis Stein. Paula was actually my mother's cousin, but we called her Nana, which sort of meant grandmother. Her husband, Louis, we simply referred to respectfully as Uncle Louis. In my case, he was referred to by this title respectfully and lovingly. Do you remember my question? Why don't we have grandparents? Well, Paula had 2 children before the war. Yes, I saw a picture once and asked Uncle Louis who those children were. And he told me that they were Nana's children from a long time ago. He told me that they died in the war and added that it would be best not to mention it to her ever because it would make her cry. I was aware that one should be very careful not to make people like Nana cry. So, Nana was our grandmother because we didn't have grandparents, and we were her grandchildren because she didn't have children. This made perfect sense to us. Now, Uncle Louis would refer to me as his nephew, and so everything was nice all around. Louis was the second husband of Paula. She married her first husband in Poland before the war. He was murdered in Auschwitz. I only found out about Paula's first husband when I was in my mid-40s. He was a major figure for the Jewish resistance in the Holocaust. I will relate his story later on. It is certainly one to be remembered. I heard from my mother that Paula was not taken to the camps. She instead succeeded in obtaining Aryan documents, which testified to her identification as a Polish national of Catholic religion. She managed to find employment during the war. She cleaned floors in the Warsaw headquarters of the Gestapo. One hears about people who are dissatisfied with the jobs they have. Imagine a Jewish woman waking up every morning preparing to go to work at the office of the Gestapo. Call it terror on a daily basis. Consider for a moment the courage she needed to muster each and every day. Do we have any idea of what courage is? In one word, Paula was an elegant lady. She was, as they say, well put together, well read, fluent in numerous languages, and conversant in many topics. She could learn diverse skills and topics quickly. For me, she was always interesting and a pleasure to talk to. She was sharp. She liked to play bridge. It really didn't interest me personally. She told me a story about how she learned to play bridge. She told me that she learned to play bridge while she was on the boat to America. It was a long voyage with little to do. She saw some rich people playing cards and found out that the name of the game that they were playing was called bridge. It was not merely a game of bridge, it was a tournament. She thought that she would like to meet these people. They seemed to be okay. They were friendly and intelligent. They appeared to be successful. They clearly had enough money for what they needed, and it didn't bother them much if they lost some money playing cards, although they did like to win. She figured that if she knew how to play their game, it would be a good way to meet them and make friends with them. She watched them play, at first from a distance, then she moved in closer, paying attention to what the winners were doing. When she felt more confident and the opportunity presented itself, she sat down at the table. She began to play, and the transoceanic voyage passed much more quickly. She learned something new, picked up a few extra dollars in the course of time. It was no fortune, but she could definitely find a use for the money. The people that she was interested in making friends with were never mentioned. I suppose they all went their separate ways when the voyage ended. Paula was a great lover of bridge all her life, however, and I was told that she really was a good player. She made it to the States, met Uncle Louis, married him, and settled in New Haven, Connecticut, where he was a full partner in a surveying company that had major contracts with the city of New Haven. My mother used to go to New Haven and visit every other week. They would come up to our place quite often as well. I remember going out to surveying trips with my Uncle Louis in the summertime. I absolutely loved it. Paula would drive to the office, which was located in downtown New Haven, not far from the Yale Green. We would go in properly like business people, through the front door and down the hallway to Stein and Giordano Associates, surveyors and city engineers. The office was not a large one. There was the back room with a big window overlooking the street, where there were a couple of drafting tables set up. The front office was very modest indeed. A simple desk, a chair, a typewriter, a filing cabinet, and of course a water cooler with cold spring water. Uncle Louis loved spring water, and he loved seltzer. On the wall of the office was a picture of a cube, a sphere, and a pyramid. I was staring at it for a long time. Paula asked if I liked it. I nodded that, indeed, I liked it very much. She told me that she herself made the drawing. When it was time to go out for a job, Uncle Louis would roll up the plans he was working on and tuck them under his arm and motion to me with his free hand that I should come with him. We would go out through the back door to the parking lot where they parked the working car, and we would be off. We would pick up another surveyor and an assistant on the way to the job site. Once arrived, we would unpack our equipment and get to work. It was kind of interesting to me. You see, people wanted to build houses or schools or buildings or shopping centers or almost anything. They had to get the land registered in the City Hall of Records. To do that, they had to have a certified map from a certified engineer who certified that the property being registered was located at the stated location that was shown on the map. There were distances and angles and elevations to deal with. Hanging around with these people made me feel important. I really loved my Uncle Louis the engineer. He was a good, kind man too. The assistant that he took with him was a young black man looking for a break. Uncle Louis gave him that break. They used to kid around with him if he was late to the pickup point, but it was never nasty, always good-natured. What's more, they would always let him pick the radio station to listen to on the way to and from the job site. That is where I received my first exposure to soul music. Dionne Warwick and Aretha Franklin were something my ears were just waiting for. It was the 60s, and flower power movement was real big in New Haven, the Yale Green being a cultural center for the counterculture. Gene McCarthy, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, SDS, the Students for a Democratic Society, Black Panthers, and bell-bottom pants. It was wild. In contrast, my Uncle Louis was the most normal guy in the world. I learned something important from him. He would always give me a bottle of Coca-Cola after we finished work on those hot summer mornings, before Nana would take me back to the apartment for lunch, which was as elegant as she was. She would cook the simplest food in an elegant way. One day, Uncle Louis and I were walking around outside, and we passed a store on the corner. Something just caught my eye, and I asked him to buy it for me. He politely declined the request, so I said to him that I'm sure that Nana would buy it for me. He gave me a look, and he explained to me that if you like people because they buy you things, then you don't really like them. You just like the things. I got it. I understood what he was saying. He was right. I was so ashamed. I said I was sorry. I learned something important from him that day. Uncle Louis was a surveyor, and on that day he taught me something about the importance of interpersonal boundaries. Paula was sitting in the car with my sister and I one fine winter's day. Somehow, it came up in conversation that I didn't like girls. I was 8 years old. I said I knew what I liked, and I knew what I didn't like, and I didn't like girls. That was it. There was just no way that I would ever get married. Period. She gave me an elegant smile, but her eyes were full of love and understanding. She told me that these are the words that I am saying right now at the age of 8 years old. But then when I would reach the age of 18, it would be quite a different story. We agreed to disagree. I turned 18. I met Gila, and not only liked her, but I loved her very much, and even wanted to marry her, which happened, as we all know. I guess Paula was right. Now, I have mentioned that Paula was a really good cook. She knew her way around kitchens, and food, and spices, and salads, and you name it, she could cook it. My mother, who would get all kinds of compliments about her cooking from many different people, told me many times that she never knew how to cook. Her mother did all the cooking when she was at home. Then there was the war, and after the war, when she reunited with my father in France, Paula was there and taught her how to cook. My mother would often say, "If you think my cooking is good, go and thank Paula." Paula used to make pancakes on Sunday morning with syrup, better than any restaurant or hotel. That's for sure. One time, though, she said she was going to make something that I didn't like. I told her that I didn't like that food that she was planning to make. She came at me like lightning. "Do you have any idea of what it is like to be hungry? Do not ever say about food that you do not like it. Say, 'No, thank you,' or say that you're not hungry, but don't you ever say that you don't like food." I got it. She broke through. I understood exactly what she meant. She taught me something which was profound. When I was 12 years old, it happened. I was away at camp. Part of the camp ritual was writing letters and receiving mail. One day I got a letter from home. My mother wrote me that Uncle Louis had died. He passed away. That was it. I think that he was the first person that I loved that died. When I got home from camp, I called Paula, and I was crying. She told me that I shouldn't cry, because if I would cry, then she would cry. She told me that it would make her very happy if I could come to stay with her the next week for a few days. Perhaps she would go to the beach and go to the movies and do some interesting things. And that would make her very happy. It made me happy too. She went on to live in Florida and married Simone, a man she knew in Paris after the war. I did go to Florida to visit her, and she came to Jerusalem to visit me. She passed away in Florida, and my daughter Devorah Perel has her name, Perel. That was Paula's name in Hebrew. May her memory be a blessing.